Well, President Trump will be making history in the Holy Land. He will be the first sitting U.S. president to visit the Western Wall. It is considered the most holy prayer site in Judaism. Here's a live look at the site right now as we await the president's arrival.
Earlier, we spoke on the phone with Ilan Goldenberg. He's visiting there, and he's a senior fellow and director of the Middle East Security Program at the Center for New American Security. And we started by asking him why the Western Wall visit is so controversial.
This is, as I think you stated, this is the first president to visit the Western Wall. And the reason presidents don't tend to visit the Western Wall when they're in government is that this is the single most emotional issue of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's like going to the absolute heart of everything in a way that is likely to irritate both sides. So, U.S. government policy has been for 50 years, basically since the Six-Day War in 1967 and since Israel retook Jerusalem, has been that Jerusalem is an issue that ultimately needs to be resolved by the parties, between Israelis and Palestinians. And that's always been our policy. And so, but when you get a question, is the Western Wall part of Israel, and you say, no, it's not, well, that absolutely infuriates and frustrates Israelis. But if you say that the Western Wall is part of Israel, then you absolutely infuriate and frustrate Palestinians. And so the way to avoid getting into that situation is not to go there in the first place and not put yourself in the middle of it. Now I think President Trump, by going and visiting the wall, is putting himself in a position where somebody's going to ask him the question, and he's going to have some really gentle, clever kind of answer to try to not alienate both sides.
And that's, I don't know if that's something that he's known for, right? His ability sort of to be subtle. But he also, chose not to invite any politicians along with him. What do you think the message is here then? What sort of statement is the president trying to send?
Well, I think it's probably part of an overall message of trying to sympathize with Israel and with both sides, getting some really, this whole visit should really be a slam dunk for Trump. In that, he's already popular in Israel. Netanyahu has every interest in making the visit look like a success. So going to the Western Wall, a highly symbolic place, and showing sympathy with the Jewish people is a way to do that, especially coming after visiting Riyadh and on his way to see the Pope at the Vatican. But again, I think he probably didn't realize how complex this issue would be. Once you say you're going, though, there's no pulling out. So the only thing that could be worse than going and saying something that offends one side or the other is not going at all to the Western Wall and pulling it down after saying you were going to do it. So I think that's part of the challenge. They're pretty much stuck with this relatively treacherous part of the trip.
Ilan, one of the things that has been also very interesting is the reaction to President Trump sharing some intelligence with Russia that had to do with the state of Israel. Secretary Tillerson was asked about that. He seemed to sort of brush it aside. You say that President Trump is very popular in Israel. Why hasn't there been a stronger reaction to the sharing of intelligence with an adversary of the United States?
So to be clear, I think there's the public reaction and there's the private reaction. Publicly, the Israeli government wants this to be a good visit. They want to portray this as successful. So they are not going to bring this issue up and make a big deal out of it in public. They just don't benefit at all from that. I think they all realize that very quickly. Privately, especially at the intelligence level, security professionals, the military, they're furious, absolutely furious. And there's no question in my mind that, one of the huge benefits that the United States and Israel get out of their relationship is their ability to have very frank and honest discussions about common security challenges. I was a Pentagon official, spent a lot of time talking to Israelis about this. I always found it tremendously beneficial for us and tremendously beneficial for them. And I think that there's no question in my mind that this disclosure is going to now cause Israelis to clam up in those discussions. It's going to hurt the quality of that dialogue and the honesty and really damage the security relationship in the long term. I'm very concerned about it, and we won't hear about it during the trip, but it doesn't mean it's not a huge problem.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and some real insight there from Ilan Goldenberg. Thank you.
Thanks.